right door on your way down. There's no telling where you'll end up. Can you make it through?
To the night's end.
I'll see you soon.
I see you can't really get enough of this place, can you, friend? Looking for something in particular? Or are you just as sadistic as me and enjoy the, let's call it, pain of others? You don't want to tell me, huh? Oh well, fair enough. Living here for a millennia has the tendency to bring on a bout or two of intense loneliness. You won't tell anyone that, will you? Yes, so I'm just enjoying having the company. How about we try this door over here? This one is titled The Storm, written by Christopher M Fink and narrated by Joshua Boucher.
I didn't wake up this morning. No, that implies I went to sleep. On the regular, I had a hard enough time getting to bed as is, but I got by good enough for my own sake. However, last night was nothing of the norm. I looked outside at the damage that last night's storm had inflicted. Trees were stripped of their leaves and dead branches. The surrounding yards were blanketed with twigs and debris. I could hardly see the road for what it was, as in contrast to the blacktop, the brightly colored leaves of autumn laid out a kaleidoscope strip of color that stretched way out into the distance. It wasn't a hurricane or any other kind of severe storm. At least the news never announced it as such. My concerns, however, were not with the storm, nor with the aftermath. I usually look forward to stormy nights as I find them to be the most relaxing. Last night started out this way, sure enough. I'd found myself, 17 years old, with a house to myself, finally. It wasn't too often I got to have this freedom. I guess my parents fear what most do, that I might invite my friends over to trash the place and get a little drunk, while engaging in all manners of other promiscuous acts. It wasn't my style. At least I would never do any of those things here. I only wanted to enjoy a night of watching TV. Maybe I would steal a beer from the fridge. No one would notice one or two missing. Indeed, that's how the night started. The storm pretty much came with the night. Daylight faded. It was ushered out by the invasion of some intimidating-looking clouds that rolled through the sky. The air got thick and cold as the clouds began to kick up. Before long, the first rumbles of thunder were heard, and finally a chilling crack of lightning. With this, the clouds opened up, dumping immense amounts of rain on the region. It came down in torrents, and I thought nothing more than heating up some leftover pizza and kicking back with the latest episodes of my favorite show. I drew the blinds and the curtains by our sliding glass door and hunkered down. Not long into the night, I had almost forgotten about the storm raging outside. Not to say I didn't notice it, as every so often it would remind me of its presence, thrashing the windows and the side of the house with blankets of rain. It sounded like it was knocking on the wall trying to get in. The wind tore through the street, and I could hear my mother's wind chimes being tossed around ferociously. Oh well, too late to go back now. That wasn't the only thing being tested by the storm, as every so often I could hear the wind kick up strong enough gusts to move the flower pots across the deck, and eventually managed to knock over one of the patio chairs. It was really intense and I loved it. So long as I didn't hear anything shatter, I was okay. After a while, the bumps and scrapes outside blended into an array of noises, but something else caught my attention. With the TV on, I was near passing out, my head nodding just a bit and my eyeballs getting heavy. But a sudden thump at the sliding glass door jolted me awake. I could hear the wind and rain being thrown around outside, so I figured it was nothing urgent. The plant, the chair, whatever, I just ignored it. until it happened again, the same single thump on the window. Now aware and alert, I could tell it was something else. What struck me most was where it was coming from. It was hitting on the upper part of the window. I couldn't quite picture what it could be, and I got up to investigate. My tired brain wasn't able to guess or even make any kind of suggestions. What would I do if it was something, was my first thought. Still, I wanted to check just in case. No part of me was prepared for what I saw. Tearing the curtain away, I found myself staring at the unidentified figure of someone standing with their nose almost pressed to the glass. I gasped and jumped back, falling hard on my ass as I tried to scurry as far away as I could. I sat there, prone on the ground for what felt like a frozen point in time, looking up at the figure. I could barely make out any detail, not until the sporadic lightning flashes lit up the area behind the figure. Someone in a hooded sweatshirt, no particular build I could see. I couldn't tell either way, man or woman, and I really didn't care. My heart was in my throat. The hood was pulled over their head, blacking out any features on their face. The figure looked absolutely inhuman, and further, it seemed not to be bothered by the torrential downpour. There was nothing I could think to do. I was too afraid to move, even in the slightest. I almost thought that, once I had seen him, he might have just left. Hell, I won't lie, I wished that was the case, but the person was unmoved. Standing that close to the window, I still couldn't see any facial features. Surprisingly, my heart began to relax a bit. The immense pressure in my veins had subsided, and I was able to think. Okay, I need my phone, like now. It was right next to me on the table, and I reached up slowly for it. In doing so, the figure raised a quick fist and thumped on the window again, emphasized further by a cruel thunderclap. I screamed, "Ah! Oh shit!" Springing to my feet, and with what bravery I had, I ran to the door and pulled the blinds closed. The figure made no movement, none that I saw at least. But at least now, I couldn't see it anymore. I ran back to get my phone and dialed 911. Adding insult to injury, the lights in the house began to twitch. Come on, seriously? I thought. This kind of stuff only happens in the movies. After a quick delay, I was connected to dispatch. I explained to them that somebody was outside on my back deck and that they were harassing me. No, nothing was stolen. No, they're not trying to break in. At least I didn't think so. I gave them my address and they said that a police unit was on the way. Great, but there was still time between now and then. I wanted desperately to have a gun or a baseball bat or something, but we didn't have any of the sort lying around, not that I knew of, so I waited. Thankfully, the blinds around the house were all closed, so I could move about freely. I stepped into the dining room, which was on the adjacent wall of the back deck. Through the slits in the blind, I could see the flashes of lightning and tried to make out any patterns that looked like someone was standing there. I couldn't see anything, but they were still there as I heard yet another heavy thump on the glass door again. I wanted to yell back and say the police were on the way, but I didn't want to give away my presence any more than I already had. I could still hear the wind and rain whipping against the house, and I will admit a part of me wanted to creep the blinds open a crack to see if they were still there. I got so far as my fingers on the blind, but I chickened out and moved back into the kitchen. The room was dark. The only light on was in the living room, along with the TV. I didn't want to draw any attention to myself standing in the dark and pacing around the room. I didn't hear any more from the back and hoped whoever it was had left. The minutes dragged on until I saw the sweep of headlights turn into my driveway. I wasn't moving until I knew for sure who it was. I heard two doors close, and soon enough, two beams of curious flashlights were sweeping across the front windows. They came to the door, followed by a solid knocking. "Police!" they announced. "Anyone home?" I hurried and opened the door, nearly falling to the ground with relief. They entered and I told them what had happened, taking them immediately to the back door and pointing it out to them. I wasn't yet confident to pull back the curtains myself. One of the officers walked up and did so. There was nothing there. He looked back at his partner, whose expression fell onto me with an embarrassing taunt grin as if to say, "Really, kid?" They were professional enough, taking down my statement. I guess I couldn't ask for anything more. There wasn't much going on, and I had nothing more to report, so they were soon on their way. The lead officer said to call if there was any more disturbances, but I think that was just a courtesy. They left, and soon I was alone again. Needless to say, I didn't sleep, which is where the story began, I think. The hours were long, until I could finally see the first signs of daylight. The storm had raged through the night, drifting away as dawn approached. I could only perceive it as a waking nightmare that, for some reason, had to find me. But it was gone now, as was the person. After everything, I could finally feel my exhaustion beginning to settle. Perhaps I would get some measure of sleep at last. Of course, as I decided to lie down, the phone rang. It gave me a startle, sending a nervous shock through my system. Clearly, the events of the night hadn't quite left me yet. I answered the phone. It was Mom. She asked how things were, and I guess I still had the instinct to protect my ego, as well as not wanting to alarm her. I said everything was okay, uneventful, a complete lie. I told her I was tired, having just woken up, another lie. I had to stop this and said I had to go. She understood and asked me first to check for any leaks downstairs. After a heavy rain, water was prone to seep in from the cracks in the foundation. I wouldn't be surprised if it had flooded after last night. I hung up with Mom and moved towards the basement door. I wanted to make it quick so I could get some sleep. Coming downstairs, I forgot to turn on the light. There was enough daylight outside now that I thought it'd be enough to see what I needed to see. What was I going to do if anything was ruined? Coming down the stairs, I first noticed a large damp spot in the far wall. Closer inspection revealed it to be not so bad. A small puddle had accumulated at the base. It would soon absorb into the concrete, and I had turned to head back up. It took my tired eyes a second to adjust, but I saw yet another severely damp patch along the neighboring wall. Beneath the window, the one I now saw had been broken open, was a pile of glass, as well as the meandering patterns of damp footprints leading away from a small puddle. I felt my blood go cold, and my eyes instantly filled with tears. My body was shuddering violently. Try as I might not to make any noise, but it was too late. I looked down to find the footprints walking the length of the basement until they had lost all dampness, fading to nothing. Nothing had shown that whoever had been down here was gone, except for their lack of presence. I scanned the dark area for any signs, listening close. For a moment I could hear breathing in the shadows, but it turned out to be my own, echoing back into my alert ears. I didn't see anything or anyone, and nothing looked out of place. I might have went back upstairs then, before I found myself staring into the blacked out storage area in the far corner, directly diagonal from where I was standing. There was no window there and no light showing. The only source of light was a low-hanging bulb with an old-fashioned pull cord, which was off. There was no chance in hell I was gonna go over there and check as I turned and ran up the stairs, striding 5 steps at a time. I came to the landing, crashing through the door and slamming it closed. My heart was throbbing so hard, I felt it might burst through my chest at any moment. Once again, I found myself paralyzed in fear, desperately telling myself that no one is or was down there. Had they have been, I'm sure they wouldn't have hesitated to show themselves just now. My eyes then fell on the phone. Should I call the cops again? He did say to call if there was anything else, and I ran for the phone and dialed. I waited, still trying to convince myself that everything was okay. No one is down there. No one is down there, right?
You've been listening to the Night's End podcast, which is a production of Dissonance Media. To support us, please leave a review, or for bonus content, head to patreon.com/Night's End podcast. Our website is nightsendpodcast.com. The Storm was written by Christopher M Fink. If you like The Storm, then please check out Christopher's first publication, Sacrifices Incarnate, an anthology of 10 sinister stories of a similar nature, all with a much deeper connection than the characters are prepared to understand. Link is in the description. This episode was narrated by Joshua Boucher. And as always, stay horrific, everyone.